My mum's just texted me to tell her when I'm starting. Mum, I'm starting, thank you. She's watching online. Morning, Kaya, Mwanju. Thank you all for voting me in. I kind of hate you for it. Thank you all for being here. You must have taken a lot of commitment for you to walk across here, across the stadium as well. Also, a huge shout out to if you're from a company whose logo is up here. Very grateful, because without you, we definitely wouldn't be able to come and meet tonight. This morning, sorry. I was practicing last night, clearly. So this was a 45-minute talk that I've been asked to condense into 20 minutes. And realistically, this is a topic that I could talk about for about 3 hours. So rather than taking a rational approach of taking out a few core bits that I want to go into a bit more detail, I've decided to take the unhinged approach of talking about everything I wanted to talk about really quickly. Thanks, Sarah, the biggest fan. I talk fast, especially when I'm passionate about something, and a little bit when I'm nervous, and I'm definitely both today. So try and keep up, will you? We are talking about ESG in corporate Australia and how you and your company can support sustainability mindfully. I'll touch on the context of our climate situation. I'll talk about the history of corporate environmental responsibility. I'll talk about new potential technology that's actually impacting us in sustainability-wise, from conscious consumerism and actually encouraging conscious consumerism. And finally, what you can do to make sure that you are part of an organisation that is operating in good faith. But how lucky are we to live and work on Whadjuk Noongar Budja, right on the banks of the Derrbal Yerrigan, the Swan River? I'm absolutely grateful to all of my Aboriginal friends and colleagues for continuing to share their culture and their country with me. I'm loving Camberang this year. It's my favourite season every year. Not so much the magpies, but definitely the abundance of colour and the flowers exploding everywhere, the sunshine, the light breeze. It does feel, however, that we are starting to see a lot more extreme weather and a lot more change in our seasons. Climate change is a mirror, and our land of sweeping plains is holding that mirror up to us. For tens of thousands of years, Aboriginal people have lived with the natural rhythms of these lands, but when we get prolonged periods of drought, when we get hotter summers, when we get less rainfall, we're asking for this drop-dead gorgeous country of ours to change a lot faster than it can. We've seen that around the world. We've seen extreme weather events happening more and more around the world more regularly, your once-in-a-lifetime so-and-sos. But we also see that closer to home in Perth. This year, the winter started far later than it should have. This caused that a lot of our deep-rooted trees to not get the rainfall and the water that they needed until it was too late, and a lot of them died. Environment, social, and governance is an extension of the concept of corporate social responsibility. But this has evolved to include a lot more rigour and a lot more focus on reporting and regulation. It's got a broader scope as well. Now, the last energy transition was focused only on efficiency and on the economy. How do you do things faster and quicker? When we build something, when we deliver something today, we think about, of course, how difficult is it? How long is it going to take? We also think of things like, how expensive is it going to be, or how much money is it going to bring us? We think about design. We think about, is it going to delight our users? Is it going to be a great experience for them? We think about risk. Are we mitigating some risk? We think about safety, and we've absolutely drawn the line at that human safety will not be the cost of efficiency and economy. Why can't we make this same decision for environmental safety? The next energy transition and industrial revolution is focused on the intersection between humans and technology, with sustainability as a wrapper all around it. We're right at the forefront of some really cool things happening here in WA, and I'm excited to share that with you, along with some other initiatives happening around the country and around the world. But first, we're going to start off with a quick quiz of sorts to see if you've been paying attention, not to me, but to 97% of scientists around the world that have been trying to tell us this for decades. This information is taken from the United Nations IPCC reports, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. They release one every few years, and there's a lot of scientific information in there that 97% of scientists around the world agree with. Let's talk about how long ago the last ice age was. Anyone from the crowd want to shout out how long ago the ice age was? 9 years ago. I mean, it feels like it right now. I am shivering because of how cold it is. At the back? 20,000 years ago. Last ice age was 20,000 years ago. Now, in 20,000 years, how much has the global air temperature risen on average? Any guesses? 5 5 degrees of difference in 20,000 years since the last ice age. All right, so if we've had that much change in that scale of time, how much has the Earth's average temperature risen in the last 100 years, since the year 1900? Not quite doom, but it's getting there. It's 1.2. But okay, so if you're thinking about 5 degrees of change across 20,000 years to 1.2 degrees of change in 100 years, speed of change is a lot. And the Paris Agreement tells us that as a society, as humans that we are now, and the world that we live in, can really only handle about 1.5 degrees of difference from the year 1900, and we are dangerously close to exceeding that and on track for that as well. This means that parts of the world are becoming more and more uninhabitable. We're going to start seeing more and more extreme weather events. But it also means that we, as humans, we have the luxury, if we're privileged enough, to be able to control our environment, our heating and our cooling, and get to safe places and build with architecture in mind for earthquakes and disasters and all that kind of stuff. But our flora and fauna don't have those luxuries, that we rely on them so much. The climate is changing, and that's what it does. But the rate at which it changes is unprecedented, and that is what is so alarming. We're asking our Earth and our ecosystems to change more rapidly when they can't keep up. We're asking evolution to shorten its time span and meet the deadlines that we're putting out for it. Unrealistic deadlines. I feel like we know a little bit about that. There's a lot, I think, that we can learn from Aboriginal culture, the oldest living continuing culture on the planet. How do we recognize when the land has had enough of us, and how do we rotate around like the nomadic tribes used to allow different lands to replenish over time? How do we prepare for our seasons and our really, really harsh summers? But also in the philosophy of thinking around, do we belong to country or does the country belong to us? Now, if the science or the right thing to do doesn't convince you or the people that you need to convince, here's some good old legislation. You are going to have to report on your ESG outcomes. So if you're an enterprise that meets at least 2 out of 3 criteria, the Australian government has introduced mandatory climate financial related disclosures starting from Jan 1st, 2025. Now, they've promised that while it's climate only at the moment, it's climate first, it's not climate only. So we know that there are going to be other mandatory reporting that is going to come into place for various organizations on this particular timeline here, unless this changes again. But the idea is that it's going to be more than just emissions. We're going to be talking about waste and water and pollution, which is physical pollution and air pollution. We're going to be talking about nature restoration and biodiversity. There's going to be so many more things that you as an organization need to know. Where is your business at? What are you doing? How are you collecting this information? Now, ASIC is the body that is here to govern and enforce this. So they, in the same way, will clamp down on anyone who's not reporting on their financial disclosures on an annual basis, or fudging the numbers, or making a mistake. The same kind of penalties will apply if you're doing the same with your climate disclosures that are also mandatory. The other thing that ASIC does is they clamp down on greenwashing. Now, greenwashing can be a couple of different things. For example, if you have a product or a service that you claim it to be sustainable, and it turns out that it's not, that is greenwashing, and you will be penalized for it. The other thing that's a little less obvious is if your organization is making bold claims to say, we are going to hit carbon neutrality by 2030, come and shop with us, come and buy our products because we are care for the environment. But you cannot prove that you're on track to get there if you don't have an actionable and measurable roadmap to get there. That's greenwashing too. There was a landmark case extremely recently, in August this year, the first time that ASIC actually clamped down on a greenwashing case. So Mercer Super did this thing, right? They have a portfolio that they released recently that was supposed to be the sustainable portfolio, the green portfolio. And it claimed to not invest in things like fossil fuels, alcohol, and gambling. But further investigation found that the organizations in this portfolio were actually BHP, Whitehaven Coal, AGL, Crown, Budweiser, Heineken, so many more. But if you don't have to report on it, but you want to work with organizations that meet the criteria, it's likely that they will need you to report on it. If you make up a larger entity's scope 3 with your scope 1, chances are to help maintain your partnership beyond your unique value proposition and the market positioning that you have and the relationship you've built and the products and services you provide, if you're unable to differentiate yourself further, or in a worst case scenario, if you're contributing more negatively to your buyer's ESG performance, it's going to be difficult to continue partnering with you. Because while it's mandatory reporting for now, the Australian government has promised that they will be KPIs and metrics and targets to actually reach or avoid. A quick overview for those who want to understand a bit more about scope 1, 2, and 3. Here's an example if you own a cafe. So scope 1 is everything that is directly related to your core business. So that's everything that you own, that you've purchased and that you own and you control. So for example, this could be a delivery van. You've purchased a delivery van and you are in complete control of how often it goes out, where it goes to, the pathing it takes, how many days a week that it's active, all that kind of thing, right? What fuel you use. Well within your control. Scope 2, slightly less control over this, but it's everything that is purchased to run your core business. So your purchased electricity, your purchased gas, it's everything that you use to heat or cool your store, to light your fixtures, your furnishings, light your storefront itself, power your machines, your coffee machines, fridges, everything like that. And scope 3 is really well and truly out of your control. It's how do your customers travel to come get your coffee? Do they take a jet? Do they walk? Something in between. It's the production and transport of your coffee beans. It's the production and transport and disposal of your coffee cups. It's easy to see where we get into measuring and reporting on scope 3, things can get really messy. There's a lot of complex overlap, and there's a significant amount of trust required between suppliers and buyers up and down the supply chain. We need to appropriately share this kind of information to be able to report on it holistically and reduce emissions. Is technology going to save us? When we invest in research and innovation, amazing things happen. Terrible things can happen, but amazing things can also happen. A case study in commercial aviation found that we're able to pretty much minimize or actually halve the emissions per passenger on a commercial flight. But what happens when things get easier to do? Faster to do, cheaper to do? We just do more of it. Now, I'm really excited to share with you what I've been able to understand about technology supporting the sustainability agenda. Notwithstanding the resource intensity that our data centers power the world now with, ultimately technology will not save us alone. This is a wicked problem. It is systemic, it is cyclical. Not one person or one tool got us into this mess, so not one lever can get us out. Let's talk about blockchain. Blockchain technology has a huge potential to bring more transparency, consistency, and clarity to supply chains by creating a secure, tamper-proof record of every transaction. So instead of relying on a single central authority, everyone in the blockchain network has the same copy of the data, so trust is shared and spread amongst members. Once a transaction is verified as well, it cannot be changed. Plus, with smart contracts as well, you can actually set multi-party complex deals to occur automatically if certain criteria and conditions are met. And this means that there's smoother processes and fewer errors for multi-party deals. The value of blockchain and sustainability, I think, really shines in industries like mining and logistics, where there's a strong need for detail tracking and verification. This kind of security is important for organizations that don't feel like they can share the gory details of their ESG performance, but by combining this kind of technology with IoT, we've started seeing organizations capture and report on their emissions in real time. Sorry, this one here. So as an example, a couple of Perth's big mining firms have actually already implemented private blockchains that are there to track their supply chain and trust their data. So their data in SAP has an interface into this blockchain. The tech's provided a clear and a cyber-safe way to store reusable data and the emissions on supply chain and ethical sources. But what it's also done is, while it's helping out in terms of data security, data confidentiality, but also auditability of your data as well for reporting standards, it's also giving information at real time to understand what parts of your asset, or what parts of your machinery, or what parts of your value chain you're facing more breakdowns, you're facing something a bit more regular that needs more replacement, the different emissions that are coming through there as well. So it's giving you a lot of business intelligence to make important decisions about your operations just as much as it is about your emissions. Just as blockchain's transforming the mining sector, it's also revolutionizing agriculture. AgriChain is a prime example of how technology, specifically blockchain, is collaborating with human ingenuity to enhance food security and sustainability. So by leveraging blockchain's power, AgriChain, which is based in New South Wales, they are creating a transparent and efficient supply chain for agriculture and agricultural products. So this means that you, as a consumer, can track your food from farm to fork. So you know its origin, you know its quality, the ethical sourcing behind it. It's an Australian-based initiative, but it's empowering consumer trust by providing them with better market access and fair pricing. But we can also see this happening with C2C, an organisation that's based in Europe. Now, I'm allergic to seafood, so this isn't very exciting for me. But it's exciting for our marine life. For anyone who understands, the seafood products actually have a really complex history. There's a lot of lack of digitization and unsustainable fishing practices that make a lot of this worse. So C2C have determined that their biggest problem is a lack of trusted data that can clearly link sustainability and traceability of European seafood, ultimately resulting in a failure of real-time assessment of sustainability indicators across the whole value chain. Now, C2C is built on an open source system that is linked to a multi-chain network that allows the sharing of non-specific industry data across a blockchain network to create a distributed database which includes encryption and complete auditability for each member. For something a little closer to home and that's outside of blockchain, a West Perth consulting team, who really know their stuff when it comes to human technology collaboration, has been working with Insight Energy to lower emissions on Norfolk Island. So Insight's all about pushing towards a low-emission future. One big step in that direction is changing up how electricity is used. So this consulting crew teamed up with Insight Energy to bring smart grid technology to Norfolk Island. So using a scalable, cloud-based setup on AWS, Insight was able to automate how the grid responds to price changes. Now, Norfolk Island residents can adjust their devices based on the grid's needs, making everything run a lot smoother. And since this went live, we've seen a 20% drop in energy costs and a 30% cut in diesel usage as well. So this is big wins for sustainability, for your back pocket, for energy education overall, but ultimately for putting control back into the hands of Norfolk Island residents. A benefit cannot be ignored by this. So putting control back into the hands of residents of Norfolk Island really tackles the S in ESG. Marginalised people bear the brunt of climate change, and the burdens of pollution and natural disasters are not distributed equally in our society. Now, before you get East versus West on me, OECD nations have the highest greenhouse gas emissions per capita. Wicked problems, like addressing climate change, absolutely must involve everyone. We need everyone in society to participate in something that was caused by all of society, and true partnerships is what we need. When you're working to do the right thing and have a holistic and fully functioning and participative society, which is the gold standard for inclusion and equity, don't make it a checkbox item. It will fail. You're not just engaging community. Engagement is not the outcome. Engagement is the act. It's equal opportunities that is the outcome. Equal decision-making, equal shared interests, a true partnership. I'm going to blitz through this very quickly. When you think of modern slavery, I hope you think of sweatshops, I hope you think of organisations like Apple and Shine and fast fashion in general. Do you think of the solar panel industry? The Australian Women's Uyghur Association has told us stories of their plight, of their communities, of their families being in forced labour to produce polysilicon, which is the main ingredient for modern-day solar panels, produced out of Xinjiang in China. It hurts to know that 45% of the world's supply of solar panels now comes from this particular province. ESG cannot be tackled in isolation. You cannot solve one problem while creating another. Do you know and trust where your material comes from? Would knowing that information change your buying patterns? Will you pay more to know that it wasn't involved in forced labour? That's entirely up to you. All I can hope for is a future that we're armed with readable, accessible, digestible, auditable data to make the right decisions for us. What do you reckon this graph is? Everyone loves a hockey stick. Everyone loves the end of the world exponential crisis creating hockey stick graph like this. Good thing to end on. Is it one of these? The yearly extracted quantity of raw materials. Is it the world GDP? Anthropic GHGs, anthropic meaning more than natural, created artificially. It's all of them. I hope these case studies highlight to you that we have many levers to pull, and we can't solve these problems alone. Wicked problems need wicked solutions, wicked collaborations, wicked investment. So here's my call to action. As tech creators, you have the power to redefine sustainability. Use your skills to build products that minimize waste, that reduce energy, that promote fair practices. Design with transparency in mind. Show your customers how your products and their choices impact the world around them. Push for ethical supply chains. Push for products with low emissions and low environmental impacts. And keep people and the planet, not just profit, at the front of your mind. Let's build tech that people want to use. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Aish. Hands together for Aish. That was amazing. And we want to make a difference, for sure.